One day, the wind turned strong. Mr. Lu went up the mountain early to bundle firewood to sell at the market. But the mountain path was slippery, and as soon as he stepped on the wet rock, the ground under his feet suddenly collapsed. The old man fell straight down the cliff. In the moment when he thought death had touched him, he heard a long, strong whistle like a whirlwind. A large, majestic figure, black as night stone, shot out from the darkness. A snake demon. It wrapped its body around him, gently placing him on the flat ground. Its bright yellow eyes reflected a strange light, not an evil spirit, but rather the observation of a spirit that had lived for many years. The snake demon said in a hoarse voice, "Old man, I saved your life today, but I will give you something in return." Mr. Lu trembled, but still tried to bow his head in gratitude. "I have nothing valuable, only 3 daughters." The snake demon's eyes lit up. "Then I want one of the 3. I want ... to marry her." "No," Mr. Lu panicked. "They ... are young, still have a future." The snake demon circled around him, his voice cold. "If you don't hand over one of them, don't expect to live peacefully at the foot of this mountain. Your whole family, I can kill you at any time." Hearing that, Mr. Lu collapsed to the ground, despairing. When he got home, Mai and Hong turned pale when they heard their father's story. They trembled. "What did you do to attract the monster's attention to our house? We would never take that giant snake. You take care of it yourself." They were both afraid and blaming, making Mr. Lu lower his head, heartbroken because his own life had put his family in danger. As for Dan, the youngest, she was silent for a long time, then held her father's hand. "Don't worry, Dad. If I can save you, save our family. I will go." The whole family was stunned. Mai and Hong glared. "Go away. If you are good, go be the monster's wife. Don't pretend to be a saint." But Dan didn't care. She looked at her father, who had lost a lot of hair for the 3 sisters, and made a decision that no one expected. That night, she walked alone into the forest, heading towards the place the snake demon had promised to meet. The moonlight shone on the body of the giant black snake waiting on the rock. Dan pursed her lips, her heart both afraid and determined. "I accept. I will be your wife." The snake demon's golden eyes trembled slightly, as if hiding something other than greed. And that was the beginning of it all. Dan followed the snake demon deep into the Trong Swang mountain range. The path was dark. Only the phosphorescent light from the snake demon's scales reflected on the damp rocks. Each step made her heart beat faster, but her eyes remained steadfast. She walked for her father and for her family. The snake demon used a deep voice. "Aren't you afraid of me?" Don shook his head slightly. "I am afraid, but I am more afraid of something happening to my father." The snake demon did not reply, but only led her to a large cave. Inside, it was not a damp and cold cave as she had imagined, but a vast space lit up by night pearls. The place was neatly arranged, a small stream flowing through, ceramic vases, silk scarves. Everything was unusually clean, not at all like a monster's place. The snake demon observed Dan's expression. "From now on, this is your home." Don nodded, clasping his hands in front of his chest. "You can call me Than. When in snake form, I take on the form of a snake demon. When needed, I can transform into half human, half snake. But my true form has been sealed for 100 years. She was a little stunned. Why? The snake demon did not answer immediately. His long tail slowly rolled on the stone floor, as if remembering something very far away. "Once upon a time, I was a human. the eldest son of a powerful family. But because of an evil curse, I was turned into a snake demon. Only when I find someone who truly loves me can I break the curse." Dan was silent. She didn't know what to say. He was too foreign, too dangerous, and too scary. But there was no malice in his voice. Dan was given a small room near the stream. The snake demon did not force her to do anything, nor did he force her to come near him. He only left a silver hairpin. "Wear this. I will know where you are in the mountain. You cannot leave here, otherwise the mountain will swallow you." Dan took the hairpin, was about to turn around and go back into the room when she heard him say, "I will not harm you. Whenever you want to talk, call, I will listen." She was startled. A snake demon, gentle. Meanwhile, at home, Mai and Hong whispered to each other, "He really left. I thought he would cry, but he actually left. That's good, it saves me trouble. But, do you think he'll get anything? Monsters never treat you well." They were both relieved and jealous, completely forgetting about their sister's sacrifice. As for Mr. Lu, he burned incense every night, looked up at the mountain with tears in his eyes, and couldn't sleep. That night, Dan could not sleep. She walked out of the cave, using the moonlight to illuminate the stream to ease her homesickness. The snake demon appeared from behind the large rock. He curled up, avoiding scaring her. "You are not used to this place. It's just a bit cold." The snake demon flicked its tail. The entire cave immediately warmed up. The night pearl was brighter. The stream emitted warm steam. Dan's eyes widened. "You ... can do that. Just a little trick." At that moment, for the first time, Dan looked closely into his golden eyes. There was no cruelty in his eyes, only a silent loneliness. She asked softly, "How long have you lived alone?" 100 years. The night wind whistled through the crevices of the rocks, but her heart felt warmer. Dan slowly said, "If I am your wife, from today on, I will no longer be afraid of you." The snake demon's eyes trembled. The light seemed to soften. "I will never hurt you. I have waited for this day. For a long time." Dan bowed his head. His chest suddenly ached, not because of fear, but because of an indescribable feeling of compassion. And from here, the strange fate between mortal and snake demon began to sprout. The first few days on Trong Swong Mountain passed slowly. Dan gradually got used to living next to Than the snake demon, though he still kept his snake form most of the time. She was no longer afraid of him whenever he appeared. On the contrary, she began to see him more as a companion. One morning, Dan woke up and saw a wooden tray in front of her room door, on which were a bowl of hot white porridge, a basket of wild mushrooms, some clean green vegetables, and a gutted streamfish. She was surprised. "Than brought food for me." The snake demon crawled out from the crevice. "I don't know how to cook, but I can bring back the best things from the forest." "Do you like it?" Don chuckled lightly. "I like it, but let me teach you how to cook, okay?" The snake demon was a little startled. I've never done anything human." "Then let's learn. I'll cook, you watch." Without knowing when, she started talking to him as naturally as if talking to an acquaintance. Than observed her from afar, not daring to come closer for fear of scaring her. But Dan stepped forward, placed the pot on the stone stove, and gently said, "Come here and see. I won't bite you." The snake demon was a little stunned, then moved closer. For the first time in 100 years, he was called closer by a human, without being frightened. That afternoon, the sky poured rain. The stream rose. Strong winds blew the leaves of the forest. Dan was hanging out the washed silks to dry in front of the cave when the wind blew them down the cliff. Without thinking, she ran to save the silks. But the slippery ground made her slip just a few inches away from falling down the cliff. Dan, a dark shadow rushed over. Than turned his body and wrapped around her, keeping her from sliding down the cliff. She lay snugly in the warm body of the snake, her heart pounding. "You, save me," Than hissed softly, his voice trembling. "Never stand near the edge of the cliff. I was afraid you would disappear." She had never heard him speak with such a weak voice. As if it were natural, Dan reached out to touch his head, something she had never dared to do before. His scales were as cold as ice, but they trembled slightly as if reacting to her gentleness. At that moment, both of them were silent. When night fell, Than led Dan to a large rock field illuminated by the moonlight. He spoke slowly. "I want to tell you about the curse, the one that turned me into a snake demon." Dan sat down next to him. "I'm listening." Than looked up at the sky, his voice echoing from the distant past. "I was the eldest son of the Thanvan family. When I was 20 years old, I was deceived and cursed by a fox spirit. She said I was unfaithful, but I never loved her. The curse will only be broken when I meet someone who truly accepts me even though I am a snake. I have waited for a long time. All mortals who come to the mountain are afraid of me. Everyone runs away." Than turned his golden eyes to her. "Only you didn't leave me." Dan felt her heart tighten, not out of pity, but a deeper, warmer feeling. She replied softly, "You saved my father, saved me. I am not afraid of you anymore." At that moment, something in Than's eyes changed. A thin mist surrounded the snake demon's body. Dan was startled. "Than, what's wrong with you?" He closed his eyes, in pain. "The curse is wavering. Maybe because my heart is no longer made of stone." The light emitted from his scales was so strong that Dan had to cover his eyes. A half-human, half-serpent figure appeared for a moment, beautiful, majestic, young, and then vanished again. Than breathed heavily. Darkness enveloped him again. "I still can't escape, but thanks to you, I've taken a step forward." Dan looked at him, his lips trembling slightly. "Than, I will help you break the curse. No matter how long it takes, I will be by your side." Than fell silent, saying nothing more, but his golden eyes softened more than ever. And in that cold, rainy night, in the middle of the misty mountains and forests, a new feeling quietly blossomed. After the night the curse wavered, Than became quieter than usual. He kept his distance from Dan, seemingly afraid that if he got too close, the curse would react and harm her. But it was this avoidance that made Dan realize that her heart was no longer calm. One morning, Dan woke up and saw a bunch of flowers shining silver in front of the cave. The petals were soft as silk, shining like a crescent moon. She was surprised. This is moonflower, the rarest flower in this mountain range. Than crawled out from the big rock, his voice slightly hesitant. I see you like the moonlight, so I brought it back." Dan hugged the bouquet, feeling her heart pounding very hard. "But this flower is very difficult to pick. You have to climb a cliff hundreds of meters high." Than gently avoided her eyes. "It's okay for me. It's easier than you think." But Dan noticed that some of the scales on his body were scratched. He had risked his life for her. She bowed her head. "Thank you, Than." He was silent, but his golden eyes lit up. No longer the cold light of a beast, but the warmth and gentleness of a real human. To thank him, Dan wanted to teach Than how to cook a simple dish, spring vegetable soup. Than tried, but things quickly turned chaotic. Than, you put too much salt. I thought we should throw away the whole handful. No, just a pinch. How much is a pinch? The size of a fingernail, the size of my tail. Dan held his head and burst out laughing, while Than stood beside him, looking at the boiling pot of soup as if he wanted to attack him. He said seriously, "Humans are so troublesome, but the food you cook is delicious." Dan suddenly blushed. That day, the forest was cold and windy. Dan had a cold, a slight fever, and was curled up on the bed. Than looked at her, confused. "How are you? I'm a little tired. I think I just need to sleep." He didn't know what to do. He could only crawl around the room, worried, his golden eyes sparkling. Then finally he said, "When people are cold, they need to be kept warm, right?" Dan nodded slightly, eyes half closed. Than hesitated. Then slowly he transformed into half-human, half-snake, the form he usually tried to hide. He sat down beside the bed, using his body to gently hug her, while the snake's tail wrapped around her to keep her warm. Dan leaned against his chest. "Warm, ... so warm, ... Than stiffened. His heart, even a demon has a heart, was beating violently fast. "I won't scare you. Just keep warm." Dan leaned against his chest. "Warm, so warm." Than stiffened. His heart, even love has a heart, was beating rapidly. "I won't scare you. Just keep you warm." Dan didn't know when she fell asleep. But before falling asleep, she softly said, "Thank you, Than." And that was the first time he heard that girl call his name in such a soft voice. In the middle of the night, the light from Than's body was so strong that it lit up the entire cave. He was in pain, half kneeling, the curse screeching in his blood. "No, not now. I don't want to scare you." His body glowed, the snake part turned into silvery white scales. The human part became more visible. Dan woke up, bewildered. "Than, what's wrong with you?" He gritted his teeth. The curse ... was shaken again. "Because ... you're in my hands." The light flared up, but this time Dan did not retreat like a mortal facing a monster. She ran to him and hugged him. "Than, I am here. Don't be afraid. I will not abandon you." At that moment, the curse suddenly stopped. The light went out. Than's breathing returned to normal. He looked at Dan, his eyes trembling slightly, as if he could not believe what had just happened. "Dan, you accept this form of me. If it were you, I would not be afraid." That sentence made Than completely silent. In his chest, for the first time in 100 years, a warm feeling spread throughout. A soul trapped in a curse was loved for the first time. Rumors spread throughout the village. Mr. Lu's youngest daughter was taken by a monster to be his wife. People whispered and sneered. Mai and Hong even secretly rejoiced. "She lives with a snake demon. She will die soon." Yes, then the family's assets will be in our hands. Little did they know, this cruelty and greed would soon push them into the cycle of karma. From the day Dan fell ill and Than held him warm, an invisible bond had formed between them, warm, gentle, and hard to break. Dan woke up every morning to find the bundle of firewood neatly stacked, the spring water heated, the best wild fruits brought back. Than never said, "I do it for you," but every action acknowledged it. Once, Dan said softly, "If you don't like cooking, I will cook for both of us. As for you, just being by my side is enough." Than was a little stunned. Then he bowed his head slightly. "Okay, I will be by your side." The sentence was simple, but it was the first promise between them. Thanks to his closeness to Dan, Than's curse gradually weakened. One evening, as the two sat by the stream, Than took a deep breath and tried to transform. Light radiated. The snake's scales gradually shrunk. The upper body transformed into a handsome young man. Long hair, skin as white as mountain mist. Only the snake tail remained behind him. Dan sighed softly. "You ... are more beautiful than I thought." Than was confused, her cheeks slightly red. Did I scare you?" "No, I was just ... surprised." For the first time, their eyes met without the boundary between human and demon. The village was in an uproar when they saw Mr. Lu looking sad and haggard. People pointed. "The youngest daughter has been taken by a demon. She might be dead. That family is really unlucky." Mai and Hong listened without bothering to defend their sister. Instead, they whispered, "It's better if she dies, then our father's property will be divided equally among us. Yes, why suddenly give birth to a virtuous child?" Mr. Lu heard a little. His heart was cut like a knife. He knew he shouldn't discriminate between his children, but the truth was that out of the three, only Dan truly loved him. Every night, he burned incense and prayed for Dan's safety. One day, someone came back from collecting medicinal herbs from the mountain and said, "I saw from afar the shadow of an extremely handsome young man near the large cave on the top. His eyes were as bright as stars, and his figure was as tall as a god." This news reached Mai and Hong. Hong pouted. "What boy? Isn't that a snake demon there?" The other person said, No, I saw it clearly. A human, not a snake. So beautiful that no one in our village could compare." Mai was silent for a moment, then suddenly startled. Could it be that the snake demon has turned into a human? Hong glared. "You mean Dan is living with a handsome guy?" Both of them were burning with jealousy. Mai gritted her teeth. "Impossible. He is just a lowly person. How could he be loved by a snake more than me?" Hong clenched her fists. "If he has that, then we have to take it back." In the minds of the two, a dark plan was forming. That evening, the wind blew gently through the forest. Dan sat by the stream, and Than, in his half-human form, sat next to her. Suddenly, Than asked softly, "Dan, do you regret going up the mountain with me?" Dan smiled. "At first I was scared, but now, no. If I had to choose again, I would still choose to save my father. And I don't feel sad when I'm with you." Than bowed his head, his long hair falling to his shoulders, his eyes soft as water. "I am very happy." Dan widened his eyes. "Than, what's wrong with you?" Than hesitated, his voice as small as the forest wind. "I'm afraid that one day you will leave me. You are a human. And I, even if I can break the curse, I am not like your world." Dan gently touched his hand. "Than, if I chose to be with you, then I will not leave you." At that moment, Than took her hand, the first time he took the initiative. "Dan, I want to say that I liked you. I liked you since the moment you touched my head that rainy night." Dan was surprised. Her heart fluttered with each light beat. She replied very softly, "I also have that feeling." The wind blew, carrying the scent of wildflowers. The moonlight shone on the two people, making their shadows blend together. And just when the two hearts were closest, a dark figure stood hidden in the distance, looking at them with eyes filled with hatred. No one knew Hong had secretly followed the forest path to the mountain. She witnessed everything. A malicious thought welled up in her heart. It must die. It doesn't deserve what I want. After witnessing Dan sitting by the stream with a handsome, half-human, half-snake boy, Hong's heart was burned with jealousy. She returned down the mountain with red eyes and rapid breathing. Mai ran out and asked, "What happened? What did you see?" Hong gritted her teeth. "She is living happily with an incredibly handsome guy, not a monster like everyone thinks." Mai was stunned. "Impossible. I saw it with my own eyes." She hugged her and talked sweetly, and he looked at her like she was a treasure. "While we are many times more beautiful than her, we are old maids that no one cares about." The more Hong talked, the angrier she became. Mai clenched her lips. "No, he can't be better than me. I have to find a way to get him back." Hong growled. "If I can't get him back, then I'll make him lose everything." The two sisters looked at each other, their eyes filled with only greed and hatred. Meanwhile, Dan and Than continue to live their rare, peaceful days. Dan teaches Than, make cakes from rice flour, recognize medicinal plants, smile more. Than teaches Dan, calling wild animals, how to listen to the wind to predict rain, and the secrets of the Trong Swong mountain range. One afternoon, when the sunlight filtered through the treetops, Than asked, "Dan, if I could break the curse and become a human again, do you want to live in the mountains or in the village?" Dan thought for a moment and then smiled. "Anywhere is fine, as long as I have you." The answer made Than stand still for a moment. Then he slightly lowered his head to hide his emotions. "Dan, you don't know how precious you just said something." One night, Mr. Liu had just lit incense to pray for his youngest son when he heard a knock on the door. A stranger handed him a letter and left. He opened it and read the handwriting was scribbled. "Your youngest daughter is living with a monster disguised as a human. If you don't save her in time, she will die. To save her, you must go up the mountain on the night of the full moon." Mr. Liu trembled, tears falling onto the letter. Who wrote like this? Mai and Hong stood behind, looking at their father, bewildered, but their hearts were filled with joy. Mai added fuel to the fire. "Dad, he must be suffering a lot up there. Monsters cannot love humans." Hong pretended to be tearful. "Should I go up the mountain to find him? I love him so much." Mr. Liu became even more worried, completely unaware that his two children were pretending. That night, the moon was bright red, signaling a great change in the evil spirit on the mountain. Than looked up at the sky, his eyes worried. "Tonight, my curse will weaken again, I fear. Something bad is happening." Dan squeezed his hand to reassure him. "I'm here. No matter what happens, I won't leave you." Than reached out and gently touched her cheek. "Dan, you're the only light I have." Suddenly, the ground shook. The sound of footsteps echoed from outside the ravine. Than immediately pulled Dan behind him. "Someone is coming up here." In the darkness, two figures appeared under the moonlight. None other than Mai and Hong. Dan's eyes widened in surprise. "Sister, why are you guys up here?" Mai pretended to be scared, holding her chest. "Oh my God, Dan, have you been captured by a monster? We were so worried about you that we came up here." Hong looked at Than with a look of infatuation and greed. "The boy... is so handsome." Than frowned, stepping forward to shield Dan. "What are you two doing here?" Hong smiled, her voice small but full of malice. "Of course, to bring our sister back. And... let's see how handsome the snake-loving boy is." Dan's face darkened. You to go home. This is not a joke. Mai suddenly knelt down and clung to Dan's legs. Dan, I have to go home now. The monsters here will kill me. Dan had not yet reacted. Than growled softly, his golden eyes shining brightly. You dare call me a monster? The atmosphere immediately became tense as a string. Hong looked at Than blankly, not out of fear, but out of desire. Such a beautiful person. Why is he with Dan? He is not worthy, never worthy. The sentence left Dan numb. Than stepped back towards her, grabbed Dan's wrist, his voice as deep as thunder. You to go back, before I lose my patience. Than retreated towards her, grabbed Dan's wrist, his voice as deep as thunder. You too go back, before I lose my patience. Mai was trembling with fear, but Hong did not retreat. On the contrary, she shouted angrily, if I can't have him, then Dan won't be able to keep him either. Hong rushed forward, intending to push Dan off the cliff. Dan shouted. Everything happened in a flash. Dan was surprised, slipped. Than rushed forward with the speed of a demon snake. Mai screamed in panic. Hong laughed wildly. The wind blew strongly. The red moonlight covered that tragic scene. Dan woke up in a brightly lit room in the mountain mansion. The faint scent of herbs wafted in the air, and the gentle sound of a flowing stream echoed outside. She vaguely realized that she had fainted after seeing Than return to human form. The door opened. Than walked in. The snake demon's appearance was gone. No scales, no tail. There was only the figure of a handsome, elegant young man, his golden eyes now as clear as amber. He wore a white tunic, his black hair tied high, his demeanor both cold and gentle. Dan opened his eyes slightly, then froze. Why you... Than walked over, sat next to the bed, his eyes filled with pity. It's me. The curse has been lifted, thanks to you. Dan's face turned red, her heart pounding, both happy and confused. Than gently touched her forehead, checking her temperature. Are you tired? Did I scare you? No, it's just, I'm not used to it yet. Than laughed, a warm laugh that she had never heard before when he was still a snake demon. When Dan was able to sit up, Than took her to the main cave. It now looked like a feudal mansion, luxurious but not ostentatious.
A figure in green was waiting. Dan was a little startled. This was the first time she saw another human in mountains. Than introduced. This is Tu Lam, my most loyal servant. When I was cursed to turn into a snake demon, she was the only one left to take care of this place. Tu Lam lowered her head, but her sharp eyes glanced at Dan with scrutiny. So, this is the person who lifted the young master's curse. Her voice was heavy, unable to hide her annoyance. Dan smiled slightly. It was just a coincidence. I don't know what I did. Than stepped forward to block Dan, his voice stern. Dan is my wife. From now on, everyone in the palace must respect her. Tu Lam was silent, but her eyelashes trembled slightly. She was clearly not pleased. After the meal, Than led Dan to an ancient study. He pointed to a painting on the wall. In the painting was a noble family, dressed neatly, but the mother's face was clearly evil. That's my mother, Than said, the one who created the curse. Dan was shocked. Mother... cursed me. Than nodded. When I was still human, I loved a mortal girl. My mother did not accept. She thought I had brought shame to the family. My mother killed that girl right in front of me. Dan covered his mouth, stunned. I went crazy, rebelled against her. And the last thing I heard before turning into a snake demon was, if you dare to disobey me, you will live a lonely life in the form of a monster cursed by the world. Only when you find a love that is truer than fear will you escape this life. Dan trembled. Than, I didn't expect you to endure so much. Than placed his hand on hers. I don't want to say it because I'm afraid you'll pity me. I just want you to know I cherish you. Because you didn't run away, didn't despise me, didn't abandon me like other people. Dan lowered her head, her voice low. I don't pity you. I just pity you. Than looked at her, her eyes softening into deep love. As Dan left the study, Lam quietly walked out from behind the stone pillar. Her eyes darkened. Humph, I don't believe that country girl is strong enough to break the curse. Doesn't the young master know? I am the one who has been by your side for the past 100 years. She clenched her fist. I won't let her take away my position. Lam's eyes were cold, hiding a dangerous ambition. A strong wind blew by, causing the stone curtain to make warning sounds. An incident was waiting ahead. In the days after Than lifted the curse, the atmosphere in the palace became warmer. Than often took Dan to many places in the mountains, from Trongengen waterfall to the bamboo forest that swayed with the wind. The two gradually became in harmony, as if they had been together since their previous lives. However, not everyone was happy, and the one who was most dissatisfied was Lam. One afternoon, Dan brought a basket of wild fruits to Than. On the way back, she heard Lam whispering in the stone kitchen. The young master has really changed all because of her. The other servant's voice was worried. But that girl is gentle and sincere to the young master. Lam slammed the stone cup down on the table. Dan, she took away my position. I have waited for you for 100 years. For 100 years I have taken care of this mansion, protected you. And she has only arrived for a few days and has already taken your heart. She clenched her fists, her eyes red. No, I will not let her live in peace. Dan stood outside, listening to every word. Her chest tightened. She didn't want anyone to hurt her, but she didn't want to argue with anyone either. She just loved Than. And she believed Than loved her. But the uneasiness still crept into her heart like a small needle. Night fell. Than invited Dan to the top of Trong Swang Mountain to watch the stars. The moon was as bright as silver. Than spread a shirt for Dan to sit down. The wind blew gently, making her hair flutter in the moonlight. Than looked at her for a long time, his eyes as gentle as water. Being with you, I feel like I am the same person as before. Dan gently leaned her head on his shoulder. Me too. As long as you're by my side, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Than wrapped his arms around her waist, hugging her lightly but extremely warmly. But in that sweet moment, a cold, dark air suddenly blew. The entire mountainside shook slightly. Dan was startled. What is this? Than stood up abruptly. His breathing became heavy. No. This is evil energy. Someone is trying to break the seal in the mountain. Dan was scared. Who wants to do that? Than narrowed his eyes and looked down at the foot of the mountain. He looked like he had regained the alert look of the snake demon from before. There is something that has been sleeping for hundreds of years at the bottom of the cave. If that seal is broken, the entire Trong Swang Mountain will become a grave. Than immediately took Dan back to the palace. But when they returned, the light in the main hall was red. The demon-suppressing talisman was torn to pieces on the ground. A figure stood in the middle of the floor, long hair loose, holding a blood-red magic weapon. Lam, Dan's face paled. What are you doing? Lam turned around, her face distorted with hatred. I'm just taking back what's mine. The young master was originally mine. You're not worthy. Than stepped forward, his eyes cold as ice. Lam, I have been good to you for 100 years. Why did you betray me? Because I love you, Lam screamed, her hands shaking. I loved you even before you were cursed. I have always been by your side. As for her, she is just a passerby. Dan stepped back. She did not expect that love could make a person so scary. Than said in a low voice, "You broke the seal. Do you know what's down there?" Lam sneered. "I don't care about anything. As long as she dies, you will return to me," Dan gasped. Than pulled out his sleeve, creating a barrier in front of Dan. "Lam, you have chosen a path of no return." At that moment, a terrifying roar encouraged from the earth. The stone floor cracked open. The breath of an ancient creature poured out like a storm. Lam laughed madly. "I have opened the seal. Let's see how long she can live," Than shouted. "Dan, stop back. The seal is broken. That thing is not a normal demon." Dan trembled, hugging the hairpin Than gave her tightly. She didn't know what she was about to face, but she knew. A new nightmare was about to begin. The entire mountain range shook as if there was an earthquake. The cracks in the rocks stretched along the ground, spilling out a red glow like lava. Dan retreated, clutching her chest, finding it hard to breathe. Than immediately stood in front of her, his aura radiating as powerful as when he was a snake demon. But now he had a human form. His majesty made his shadow stretch out under the red light. Lam stood between the line of light and dark, her hair fluttering in the wind, her eyes bloodshot. "Let's see how long you can protect her." A roar rose from the earth, deep, like the sound of an ancient creature that had died and come back to life. Dan covered his ears, shivering with each roar. A giant arm, black as coal, rose from the crack. Then the huge head slowly rose from the ground. A 1,000-year-old monster. Tiger body, buffalo horns, blood-red eyes, claws as long as sword blades. Than's face paled. "Blood beast. The seal has been completely broken." Before Dan could ask, the monster had already jumped up, sending rubble flying. Lam was still standing there, laughing madly. "It will swallow her first." The blood beast charged straight towards Dan. She screamed, retreating in despair. But Than had already flown forward, using all her remaining magic power to strike the monster's jaw. The impact sent them both flying to opposite sides. "Don, run, run!" Than screamed. His shirt was torn, blood dripping from his arm, but Dan did not run. She watched Than being thrown against the rock. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. "No, I will not leave you." The blood demon beast opened its mouth wide, its foul breath filling the entire hall. Dan stood in front of Than, her hands trembling. "If you want to eat people, eat me first." The blood demon beast paused. A hint of hesitation flashed in its red eyes, as if it sensed something in the girl's body. Than's face changed color. "Dan, get out of the way. No. If I leave you behind, I will regret it for the rest of my life." The monster roared angrily, swinging its claws to attack. Dan closed his eyes. A white light burst out from Dan. The shockwave was so strong that both the monster and Lam were thrown back. Than was stunned. The light is a holy barrier? When Dan opened her eyes, a white halo of light like a celestial spirit radiated from her body. Ancient symbols floated in the air, revolving around her. "This, what?" Dan trembled. Than choked. He recognized that thing. Dan. She has the goddess soul seal inside her. The god who sacrificed himself to seal the blood beast has deposited a part of his spiritual power into her blood. Dan was shocked. I am a descendant of a god?" "Not a god," Than said, his voice warm but stern. "But she has a part of their spiritual power inside her. And that spiritual power is the key to reseal this monster." Lam shouted, "No, don't let it seal again." She rushed forward, intending to take the monster's magic weapon to stop it, but Than blocked her way, knocking her down. Than's eyes were no longer gentle, but sharp as a sword blade. "To Lam, this is the last time you will be able to stand in this mountain mansion." To Lam laughed madly, her eyes red with despair. "If I can't have you, then she won't be able to survive." She rushed towards Dan. Dan stood in the middle of the ruined palace. The white light from her body was like a shield. She looked at Tulam and Hayat Thurzu were rushing towards her at the same time. And she said, "If I have to die to save the person I love, I am willing." Than shouted, "Dan, don't," but it was too late. Dan clasped her hands, letting the white light explode blindingly. A holy magic formation was opened. The entire mountain was lit up like daylight. The blood demon beast howled in fear, its body being pulled into the center of the magic formation. Silan was also pulled by the magic formation's suction force, trying to cling to the stone pillar but couldn't. "No, no, I don't want to die. I want you, young master. I just want." Than looked at everything. Her heart felt like it was torn in two. "Dan, she will die." But Dan still smiled in the white light. "Than, if I die, you must live well. I love you." The last flash of white light. The entire Trong Swang mountain shook. Then all was silent. The blinding white light gradually dissipated. The stone smoke still lingered in the air. The entire hall of the mountain palace collapsed. The ground cracked into large pieces. The traces of the holy magic formation were still imprinted on the stone surface, shining brightly like embers about to go out. Dan lay in the middle of the magic circle, unmoving. No more light around. Than rushed forward. "Dan, Dan!" He knelt down, hugging her small body to his chest. The black hair spread over his hand, colder than the mountain wind. Than placed his hand on her neck. He felt nothing. Her black hair was spread out on his hand, colder than the mountain wind. Than put his hand on her neck. He felt nothing. His eyes were red. "No, don't do this. I won't let you leave me. Dan." He shook her gently, then harder, but Dan's body was still limp like a flower withered in a storm. That moment, Than's heart felt like it was being squeezed to the point of not being able to breathe. Tulam was sealed with the blood beast and had completely disappeared. The mountain palace now only had Than and Dan left. Than trembled and hugged the girl tightly. She promised to hold my hand and go down the mountain to see her father. She promised to tell me the taste of the ash cake she liked to eat. She said she would teach me to grow wildflowers. Tulam was sealed with the blood beast and had completely disappeared. The mountain palace now only had Than and Dan left. Than trembled and hugged the girl tightly. She promised to hold my hand and go down the mountain to see her father. She promised to tell me the taste of the ash cake she liked to eat. She said she would teach me to grow wildflowers. His voice choked. "Why did you break your promise to me?" Tears fell down Dan's pale face. For the first time in centuries, the snake demon, now a human, cried for a girl. Than whispered softly, "If you die, then let me die too." He lowered his head, intending to use the tip of the sword to commit suicide. Boom! A stream of pure force shot out from Dan, pushing the sword from Than's hand. Than was stunned. Dan's face was still as calm as if she were sleeping. But her chest was rising and falling slightly, although very weak. But still, there. Than pulled her into his arms, trembling like a lost soul. "She's alive, she's alive. Thank heavens." But immediately, he realized something was wrong. Dan's breathing was not like a human's. Her pulse was sometimes there, and sometimes not. A faint pattern like a broken moon appeared on her forehead. Although the holy magic formation sealed the blood beast, it also absorbed almost all of Dan's life. Without the goddess's spiritual power in her blood, she would have vanished. But she was no longer a complete human being. A soft white wind blew into the ruined palace. A silhouette appeared in the wind, a white-robed goddess, as faint as moonlight. Than was startled. "You are—" The goddess smiled sadly. "I am the afterimage of the goddess Thandirn. My blood is still in this girl." She looked at Dan. Her eyes were filled with sorrow, as if she was looking at a lost child. "This child used all of his life to activate the magic circle. He should have died. But because he carried my spiritual power, his body did not disappear." Than knelt down. "Please save her. I will do anything." The goddess shook her head. "I no longer have enough strength to save her completely, but I can keep her soul, help her live." "Between two worlds." Than choked. "Between two worlds, that means—" The goddess was sad. "That means she will no longer be human. But she has not yet become a demon. Her life will only be half. If she cannot find a medium within 3 days, she will sleep forever." Than screamed. "What is a medium?" "It is a snake demon heart voluntarily offered." Than stood still. His eyes widened. The goddess continued. "Offering the snake's heart means you will die, Than. And she will live, but will no longer remember you." The wind in the palace stopped blowing. The atmosphere suddenly became suffocatingly heavy. Than looked at Dan, who was fainting in his arms. Then he whispered softly, "If she no longer remembers me, I am still willing. As long as she lives, as long as she is happy." The goddess looked at him, sadly but admiringly. "Do you really love her that much?" Than nodded without hesitation. "I love her. With all my life." The goddess closed her eyes. "Then, prepare yourself, last snake demon. Only 3 days left to decide the fate of both of them." The white wind dissipated. Than hugged Dan tightly as if to keep the last warmth. It started to rain. The rain seemed to cry for them. The old man was at home when a man in the forest ran to him in panic. "Sir, I heard that someone at the foot of the mountain was bitten by a snake, and I suspect it was an angry snake." The old man trembled, sensing that disaster was coming. He knew Than had never harmed anyone, because he had a good nature. So what had happened? He immediately set off into the mountains to find his youngest daughter and Than. In the cave, Than was using his internal energy to extract poison from a monster hunter. That person was trembling and stammering. I was just following orders." "Someone paid me gold to kill you," Than asked. "Who hired you?" That person looked around, hesitated, then mumbled, "It was your wife's 2 older sisters." The youngest girl was startled, her heart aching as if it was being cut into pieces. Than slowly let go of her hand, her eyes changing from gentle to sad. "I suspected, but I didn't want to believe." The youngest sister burst into tears. "Than, I'm sorry that the family has harmed you." Than hugged her. "It's not your fault. But whoever creates the karma, they must suffer." Just then the old man ran in and heard the whole story. He collapsed, his face pale. Is it true? My 2 daughters would harm their father's benefactor?" The youngest daughter supported her father, choking. "Father, I'm sorry I didn't dare tell you sooner." The old man looked at Than, tears falling down. "Than, I didn't know they had done such an immoral thing. Whatever you want to do, I'll take it." Than looked at him, her eyes no longer angry but filled with deep sadness. "I do not harm innocent people. But the 2 older sisters need to face what they have done." Suddenly, a whirlwind from outside swirled into the cave. Around Than, a gentle demonic aura spread out, not fierce, but majestic. Than said, "I will not use force to punish them, but I will teach them a lesson they will never forget." The youngest sister held Than's hand anxiously. "Please don't hurt them. Even though they are evil, they are still my sisters." Than placed his hand on her head softly. "Since you say so, I will go easy on them." At home, the 2 older sisters were showing off the small amount of gold they had received from hiring someone to kill the snake demon. thinking that everything had gone smoothly. Suddenly, the ground shook. A giant white snake appeared in the middle of the yard, its eyes shining coldly. The two sisters screamed and knelt down on the ground. "Ah, don't kill us!" Fan returned to human form, standing before them. "You used evil intentions to take my life. Why?" The two girls trembled, their words revealed all their greed. You are not worthy of my sister. You were handsome when you transformed into a human. We were jealous. If you were ours, that power and property would have belonged to us." The youngest sister stood beside her, heartbroken as she watched her two older sisters reveal their greed and cruelty. The old man cried, "Than, I beg you, forgive them." Than turned around and said gently, "They will only be transformed for 3 days. During that time, they will feel fear, loneliness, and most of all, understand the kindness of me and my youngest daughter." The youngest daughter gently held the two little snakes. "Sister, think about it for 3 days. I will not abandon you two." The two older sisters shed tears in their snake forms. Than turned to the old man. "Father, I want to take my wife to my real home, where other villagers do not dare to go up the mountain to find her. There, she will be protected." The old man nodded, tears of joy in his eyes. "I entrust my youngest daughter to you. You have proven yourself to be more worthy than anyone." The youngest daughter looked at Than, her eyes filled with love. "Than, we will live together, right?" Than smiled. "Yes, and no one can separate us anymore." The two elder sisters in the form of little snakes were brought into the room by the youngest sister, carefully placed in a bamboo basket. Every day, the youngest sister brought water and food for the two elder sisters, taking care of them while shedding tears. "Even though you treated me badly, I still love you." The two little snakes lay curled up, their eyes filled with deep regret. 3 days of facing loneliness, fear, and the feeling of being disgusted by the world made the two older sisters understand clearly. This is the feeling they have sown in their younger sister for many years. By the end of the 3rd day, a gentle light enveloped the two sisters, transforming back into humans. As soon as they returned, they both hugged the youngest sister, sobbing, We were wrong. I'm sorry. I'm greedy. I'm evil, but you love us." The youngest sister smiled sadly. "Why hate? The important thing is that from now on you two will live better." Than entered the house, saw the 3 sisters hugging each other. His eyes softened. "You two have learned your lesson. I hope your greed will not return." The 2 older sisters knelt down. Thank you for not killing us." Than waved his hand. 2 streaks of light fell on them, healing the injuries and erasing the scars of the curse. "From now on, I am no longer a snake demon. I am a human, and I have limits. Please cherish your sister, because she is the kindest person I have ever met." The old man prepared a few things, and while seeing his son off, he tried to hold back his tears. "Father is poor. He cannot give you anything. But Than loves you sincerely, father, rest assured." Than stood beside him, humbly saying, "I promise to protect her for the rest of my life." The 2 older sisters also came forward. If you ever miss home, just come back. I won't be jealous anymore. I promise." The youngest sister smiled brightly, hugging her 2 older sisters tightly. Then, she stepped onto the back of a giant white snake, but it wasn't the transformed Than. It was the mountain guardian snake god, who had come to take the young couple to safety. The old man and his 2 sisters choked up as they watched the young couple gradually disappear behind the mountain mist. Than took the youngest daughter to a mysterious land in the heart of the mountain, a stream of clear blue water like jade, wild flowers shining under the moonlight, a wooden house as exquisite as a fairyland. "From now on, this is your home." The youngest daughter caressed his hand, smiling. "Home is where you are." and they held a small wedding ceremony, with only the snake god and all the animals as witnesses. No need for a gorgeous wedding dress, no need for lavish gold and silver. Just two sincere hearts, enough for heaven and earth to witness. After their younger sister left, the two older sisters decided to change. They took care of their father, worked hard, and helped the village to make up for their past mistakes. Gradually, the villagers trusted them again. The old man watched his two daughters change day by day and felt relieved. Karma has been paid. It's not too late to start over. A year later, Than took the youngest sister's hand and returned to visit his family. He was completely human, without any demonic aura. The two older sisters were surprised to see this change. Younger sister really broke the curse on him. The old man was so moved that his hands trembled. "My son-in-law, is he a complete man now?" And Than bowed his head. "Thanks to your love, I am alive again." The youngest sister shyly leaned on his shoulder, her eyes filled with happiness. From then on, the villagers told the story. The snake demon escaped the curse thanks to a poor girl, and her kindness saved an entire family from destruction. Their story became a legend in the mountains and forests, teaching people that greed creates karma, but love can resolve everything. Good people, even if poor, will be blessed. Monsters or humans, the only difference is their hearts. If you love the story and want to hear more good, meaningful, and touching stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes. Everyone's support is the biggest motivation for me to continue making better quality videos. Thank you all so much.